The next era of KCS. We're really focusing on why so AI can help us with how. My name is Kelly Murray. I am the Chief Engagement Officer with the Consortium for Service Innovation. I'm one of 6 total staff members on the consortium staff, and 3 others are here with me today. We've got Matt and Christina and Sarah. This is what we looked like at Summit last month. So just a couple weeks ago in Scottsdale, Arizona. I thought I would just keep the vibes going and wear the same thing I wore to talk about this there. So feeling like we're in this particular room together. And I want to get started just with a couple of housekeeping items. For those that don't know, the consortium is a not-for-profit think tank. We've been around since 1992. We sort of grew up in the world of support and service, sort of with the premise of, wouldn't it be great if we could stop solving the same problems over and over again? And KCS was born out of that conversation. Our work is made possible by member companies. So companies like the ones pictured here join the consortium and support this work. And all of the things that we publish are based on experiences that people are having in these companies. So the way the work gets done is we have meetings and events. We host interesting conversations. Folks from companies like these come together. We tell some jokes. We say, oh my gosh, what if we could do something like this? Someone picks up that idea and goes off and experiments with it and comes back and lets everybody know if it works. And that's how sort of the practices have been born and get evolved over time. So the members are very generous in terms of the fact that they own the IP. They own the intellectual property of the consortium, which includes all of the public-facing documentation that we make available. And so that their experience is available for you to access, and we're so grateful for their participation in this. This last, let's see, year or almost 2 at this point, there have been a handful of members specifically who have been working on the updates to the KCS methodology. And that includes this list here. This group at the bottom of this page has been on the phone with me every 2 weeks for the last 7 months getting this together. So huge thanks to them and their organizations for their commitment, their time, and their thoughts and their experience getting us all together. So lots has happened in the last 10 years. 10 years ago is when we published KCS v6, Knowledge-Centered Service. There have been a handful of things that have happened in the methodology. So some incremental changes. The practices are always shifting based on the experience of the members and what's happening in their worlds. Some of the things that have changed since that last release, you will recognize. I think we did article quality index turned into content standard checklist. Process integration indicators, right? We used to talk about PII, that became process adherence review, and now has become process alignment review. The KCS adoption guide became the adoption and transformation guide. We did some good work updating that content. We published a resource called Handling Doubts and Misconceptions, which is all about how we talk about sometimes the way people think we are, the things people think we're asking them to do are not quite what we're asking them to do. So a little bit of coaching guidance there. And then one really big piece that happened in, I think it was about 3 years ago, was the why behind the principles and practices. And that was a working group that really sat down together and talked through why is it that we are doing what it is we're asking people to do in KCS. And that features in pretty big in this update. So lots of incremental changes in the methodology. The world has changed more than incrementally, right? We've went through a pandemic. We had the nature of work changed a little bit. The way we are in our organizations in some places has really shifted. And then there's been this addition of these unbelievable tools and technologies and automation and artificial intelligence that has really, in a lot of ways, made some of our dreams come true in terms of being able to look at patterns and trends, in terms of being able to have answers served in new ways. And so it's time now to go from knowledge-centered service, KCS V6, to knowledge-centered success. So if I could press all the buttons, I would do the fireworks emoji here on my Zoom screen, but we don't want to do too much all at once here. This version, there we go. Thank you, Sarah's doing a little celebration there. We are really pleased to have done an edit on the practices guide. You'll notice it is not version 7, it is knowledge-centered success. And we'll talk a little bit more about why that is. But really, we're focused on making the content that's available for use and the methodology itself more universally applicable. So anybody who is in a knowledge-intensive environment needs a way to manage that. And we propose that KCS offers a really good option there. This iteration should feel really natural and comfortable to people who know the methodology, and it should feel really intuitive and accessible to people who are new to it. So that was some of the goal there. Let's talk briefly about what's new, and we'll talk briefly about what's not new yet, and then we'll get into sort of the details for all of my fellow KCS nerds. So what's currently available is the Knowledge-Centered Success Practices Guide 2027. This is a refactoring of the Practices Guide. A lot of editing was done. So interesting to find that there are a lot of, shall we say, artifacts left over from the fact that the original practices guide was written in Word, designed to be delivered as a PDF. And we don't have to do that anymore. We have all kinds of new technology available that makes this more accessible to people online. So currently available, the practices guide. Also available, which we'll talk a little bit about more later, is a new KCS coach reference guide, which is some collected information for people in the role of a coach, and an updated measuring self-service success guide. So that document went through, it was understanding success by channel, and then it was understanding and measuring self-service success, and now it's measuring self-service. Anyway, we'll talk about what's new there as well. This is what is currently available. What is not yet available is updated KCS certifications. So what's not new is KCS V6 is still valid. The V6 documentation is still available in the library where it has lived. KCS V6 training and certification still provides a very strong foundation. The plan is that we will release certification in April of 2027. So you do not have to delay getting KCS V6 certified if you are already. There will be a light lift bridge exam to update your certification once it becomes available. And there is nothing in KCS V6 that is wrong in knowledge-centered success. So knowledge-centered success is really about updating some terminology. It's really about focusing on the why. The principles and core concepts are still 100% in play here. So these things are not new yet, but they are coming. Here's what that's going to look like. So we released the new practices guide last month. At the end of this year, we'll release fundamentals updates, so a new online course and exam. Training updates for in-person training will happen at the beginning of next year. That will include bridge training, which will be an online course, and a bridge exam, which will be through the online learning center. So it's not proctored, it's not as big a deal as the V6 practices exam. And then the full updated practices workshop. Then we've got all of the exams released by Summit of 2027, which is going to happen in Boulder the last week of April. We hope you'll join us there. And then moving forward, we will do light lift updates to the certification every 2 years. So the practices guide is a living document, has been, will continue to be. And there'll be an easy way to update certification to follow the updates that come in the practices guide. We were laughing not too long ago about the fact that someone who got certified in KCS V6 at this point really could still think that PII is a thing in the KCS world, because there really hasn't been a way to help say, yes, I'm still involved in the updates that are happening to the methodology and the thinking that's going on there. So updating the practices guide has a huge ripple effect, as sort of evidenced on that last slide there. So what's done is the practices guide reuses review. So we're counting on you to let us know when you find things that are a little bit funky. KCS V6 certification still valid. Those things are done. What's still to come, things that we are still working on, include the adoption and transformation guide, the knowledge domain analysis guide. Christina is currently heading up a working group called Measuring and Communicating Value. We'll talk a little bit more about what that will influence as we go through the sort of more in-depth changes. We'll need to update the verified and aligned tools and services programs. And then to update certifications after April 2027, lightweight bridge exams moving forward. So those things are still to come. Let's get into some of the details. So to refresh ourselves, this was the KCS V6 double loop model. Oftentimes we start up with capture. When we talk about this in sort of a clockwise motion, we've got our solve loop practices, we've got our evolve loop practices, we've got our KCS, our trusty old KCS icon. One of the things that we sort of joked about was this was sort of a big decluttering. So if it did not spark joy, we said thank you and let it go. And so now let's take a peek at the new layout here. So we still have 8 practices. We still have 4 solve loop practices. We still have 4 evolve loop practices. You will notice some changes. So we start now with reuse. Then we talk about improve. Then we talk about capture. Then we talk about structure. Content health is still a thing. Process integration is still a thing. Performance assessment has become performance insight. And there's some changes that have happened in that practice that I'm very excited about. And then leadership and communication has become change management. All of these things still happen all at once, all at the same time, right? So some of these shifts are a little bit sort of marketing related. It's a little bit thinking about the way we invite people to understand what it is we're doing, right? So we start the conversation with reuse because it's the thing that happens the most in a KCS implementation. This is sort of the whole point, right? We are capturing information so that we can reuse it. And starting with reuse helps avoid the conversation or avoid the misconception that every interaction will result in the pausing and the creation of a new article. So we're starting with reuse because mostly over time, that's really what we're doing. Improve still talks about the fact that we need to have a way to keep knowledge accurate in the moment of use. Capture still talks about capturing in the interaction. There's a new technique in capture that differentiates between capturing and creation. So we only create when demand requires it. We're always capturing context in the workflow. That's what feeds discoverability and usability, right? Is this relevant to me? I need a little context around that. However, we're really only creating an article when one doesn't exist. And once you have an implementation up and running, that doesn't need to happen with every interaction. And then structure provides options for leveraging captured knowledge by improving readability for both humans and machines. So this is The practices guide is captured experience of members. You'll see many sort of call outs in there in terms of what or who might do these things. So as the tools are becoming more and more mature, the intent is that this is written in a way so that you can make good decisions about who or what are doing these things. In the evolve loop, we had, I believe, 12 techniques under content health. We have edited those and restructured them for clarity. I'll show you in a minute sort of what the new practices guide layout looks like. I'm pretty excited about that. Process integration has had some things move into it. We talk about workflow integration. We talk about technology integration. Then we talk about roles and the proficiency model here, because this is where people are learning how to do those things. And coaching for success has moved from performance assessment into process integration, because coaching is really about the way we do the workflow, right? It is not about performance assessment. It's actually about how we're doing this in the workflow. Performance assessment has been updated to performance insight. So the thinking about this is that there are a couple of things we want to have insight into. We want to know how individuals and teams are performing. We want to know how our program is performing, and we want to know that the implementation has is fulfilling its promises to the organization. So what the organizational benefits are. And then leadership and communication has shifted to be called change management. It's still largely about leadership and communication. However, thinking about the fact that this is a system that needs care and feeding has become a big deal to the members involved. And this section starts with talking about the motivators. So talking right out of the gate in terms about techniques that we can use to get people to do KCS. So, there we go. This is what the practices guide looks like in the library. And this is a piece of the practices guide that is new content. The purpose behind the practices is a brief sentence or two at the beginning of each loop, of each practice, and then of each technique that really talks about what each of these things is after. So this was born out of the why behind the practices work. And so this page collects all of these things at once, but each one of these things is the header of the loop, the practice, or the technique. We also have a really pretty left-hand table of contents that will walk you through sort of the flow of the practices guide. And one of the things that we focused on was really thinking about technique names and order, so that even the table of contents itself is a way to understand the content in here. So very excited to have visibility to both of these things, both table of contents and the reminder of the purpose behind each of the practices. In other new content, this section that sort of provides context about how we define knowledge and why KCS works talks very briefly about the Cynefin model, which is some systems thinking that helps people kind of visualize the difference between a complicated system on the left-hand side and a complex system on the right-hand side. And I would love to talk about this for days and days, because the systems thinking and the way that we approach our organizations is so interesting to me. But what's important to note here is complicated systems have a direct correlation between cause and effect. Complex systems do not. We think sometimes that our organizations look like a complicated system and work like a complicated system, so that the input and the output should always have the same effect or relationship. In reality, our organizations, knowledge itself And a lot of our new AI tools work like complex systems. And having this idea or this mental model can really help ease angst about the fact that we really do need to be doing some experimentation and some testing and some trying of things in order to make change like this stick. So go check that out. It's one of my favorite parts. Other new content includes the practice of capture. We talked a little bit about this, includes that new technique, which is called new articles are created on demand. Very, very pleased to sort of help people think through what that means. And both for human capturers and for AI capturers. We don't want to end up, regardless of who's creating, regardless of who's capturing, we don't want to end up with a bunch of things that we don't need. Knowledge optimization is a new technique under content health. So knowledge optimization is a rename of the technique formerly called knowledge domain analysis. Knowledge domain analysis still exists as a thing we do within our organizations. But in many cases now, the evolve loop really is the whole point of doing KCS. And knowledge optimization helps us identify and act on what we're learning way earlier in the process than the idea of having enough time or data or energy or support or experience to start a formal knowledge domain analysis program, right? So we talk in this technique about getting started early, about what some small wins might look like, about who might be involved. So we still have knowledge domain experts who are doing knowledge domain analysis, but you also might have folks who count as knowledge optimizers, right? This might be customer experience or user experience people who are working on self-service flows. This might be data folks. There's a team of champions that we need to build around people who are going to optimize this knowledge practice. So we're very much looking forward to doing some more work on this particular technique because I think that's where a lot of the power lies in these systems. And then for folks who remember in the olden days, the technology integration practice and technique, there were some really, shall we say, OG examples of what a single pane of glass might look like in terms of what an ideal knowledge capture tool would be. That whole section has been significantly updated to really include more design criteria and things to think about, as opposed to an image that was maybe created in PowerPoint 2008. So lots of good ideas and thinking still there, updated to really think through what we have available at our fingertips these days. A little modernization. Additional changes include PAR, our good friend PAR, process alignment review was released a year or two ago under the name PAR 2.0. This is now in the new practices guide, just PAR. This is the process alignment review. So all of the goodness is fully baked into the practices guide now. Coaching for Success, which moved to process integration, includes information on building a coaching program. So one of the things we discovered in the course of this update that was amazing was really how little guidance we had provided in terms of what it looks like to build a coaching program, what's involved, how you might do it, how many do I need, what kinds of things do we talk about? And so this technique now includes some of that information. And then we have this separate reference, the KCS Coach Reference Guide. It wrapped up the handling doubts and misconceptions document. So those things still exist within there, but it also talks about how you might structure a coaching program or a coaching conversation, right? Because this is for folks who are in the role of a coach. And then the coaching skills, things you need to be good at if you're going to be a coach. And then this section on handling doubts and misconceptions, which are really scripts between a coach and a coachee, sort of talking through what the approach or the thoughts of the coachee might be and how a coach might handle that. So if you haven't spent any time with that, we'd love to hear what you think and what other ways it could be helpful. And then we talked a little bit about measuring self-service success. The updates there include moving some of the self-service strategy that had lived under content health into its own guide. So this measuring self-service success piece, that's where all of the self-service success information will live. And we look forward to continuing the work on that as well. So as a reminder, this is what's available now. Practices guide, coach reference guide, measuring self-service success. Go take a look. Tell us what you think. Let us know what you find that's funky. And also come and join us to work on the rest of this stuff. So the other resource that's available is this page called What's New in Knowledge-Centered Success. It talks through and also links to all of the things that I have mentioned here today. Members will be working on the Adoption and Transformation Guide. Really excited to have the Knowledge Domain Analysis Guide turn into more guidance on knowledge optimization. I think there's a ton of opportunities that we have with all of our new tools, all of our new capabilities to look at patterns and trends, all of the ways that we are available to leverage the knowledge that we collect. That's a working group that's kicking off right now, knowledge optimization, and the update of those tools and guides. Measuring and communicating value is going to influence the performance insight practice, so that there are still some updates to come there. One of the things that we talked a lot about at Summit last month was how much we have an opportunity to reframe the story of value that we provide to the organization. So traditionally in support and service, we've been really good at talking about the value that we provide to our customers, to our requesters. In this new age of AI, we really have an opportunity to talk about how much value we provide to our company internally. But we need to reframe it a little bit differently. And so measuring and communicating value not only is about sort of what those things are that we might measure, but also how we might communicate that and to who. So very excited about that body of work. So come and join us. Serviceinnovation.org is where you can find all of the information, both about knowledge-centered success and about membership in the consortium. And with that, I'm going to stop sharing and we can talk about questions, or I see a handful of folks on the phone who participated in the updates. You can tell me what I missed or what you're excited about. Is there anything in the chat that we need to address?
No questions in the chat for you to go back and find. We had a handful of feedback about the new practices guide. So as I responded in the chat, this is, as you said many times, Kelly, this is the continuous living document, continuously evolving. And so we are always open to feedback. We love flags, and we want to hear all of that. But back to what you were saying, love to hear other reactions, especially from folks that were involved.
That's right, Mel. KCS wouldn't be KCS if it weren't iterative. That's exactly right. We were talking about how fun it is to sort of be stewards of a methodology that describes that knowledge is never 100% complete and never 100% accurate, because boy, it gives us a lot of room to experiment and iterate and learn things and add things. So
The only other thing I would say is that if you step back and look at this, some of these changes as a to correspond to the fundamental shift we're seeing in services today. And I think with
mm,
the knowledge-centered success, we're taking a very iterative and the amount of change that's been happening over the last 10 years and the acceleration of that in the last 2 years. The new model really is something that we can start to look at as expanding it across the entire enterprise. It's no longer a services model. It's now a enterprise-wide model that can be used to manage your enterprise knowledge demand, which is growing, growing, and growing. So the amount of work that went into this was huge. And while it's always been iterative, that iteration now is more lightweight for us. And I think we'll be able to see much more change. And that's why we're going to reflect that with shifting to these changes to how we do certification to make it so it's much more dynamic and much more updated. And we're not waiting another 10 years before we do something new with KCS, even though we probably should have versioned it a while ago. It was time to kind of reflect all the stuff going on. So, and thank you, huge thank you to all the teams that worked on this. It was a lot of work.
yeah, part of the intent in structuring it this way is so that we don't have to stop and do a big bang redo moving forward. So, yeah. So from a naming standpoint, I think Ryan is asking in the chat, if the V6 certification is still valid, but there'll be bridge exams, what do you call the outcome of the bridge exam certification? And the exams will have the year on them. So you'll be KCS 2027 certified and then KCS 2029 certified. And it's right, it's totally fine to stay 2027 certified if that's what your where your career is taking you. But it will at least be an indicator of sort of when you were involved. John Coles says Betty. So John was around a long, long time ago. So I think knowledge centered success started, I think, as solution centered support. So solution centered support, so knowledge centered support, knowledge centered service, knowledge centered success. So hi, John. Nice to see you. Amador wants to know about what's next in terms of the evolve loop. So what's not next in terms of the evolve loop, right? So one thing that I think is really interesting from an evolve loop standpoint is that I think this is where our humans get focused. So traditionally, we've had humans really focused on the activity of the solve loop. And as our tools get better and better, and help us either help humans do it or start to maybe do some solve loop activities autonomously, human roles I think will shift to managing ambiguity, making meaning out of things, and really figuring out how to leverage all of the trends and patterns that we see by the reuse and by the maybe the what's the word, the speed at which we're seeing things. So from an evolve loop standpoint, I think there's a huge number of things that we could experiment with and provide guidance on around what we might do with that information, right? So a lot of this will be sort of coalition building across the organization. We might need to be better friends with development or with sales and marketing. So figuring out, right, some of these value conversations come into play there when we have more time to focus on looking at what all of this means as opposed to the activities that need to be done to make it happen. So, Jason, we look forward to reporting back what the cross structure will be for the bridging certification and the costs when we know it. It will not be the V6 certification is the proctored exam. That's the $450 exam. The bridging will not be that. It will be an online, more lightweight, less expensive option, but we're still working on that. John's been rebranding their work as HITL and knowledge harvesting machines for the super duper AI initiatives that the rest of the org is doing. So this is a really interesting conversation. I saw that Jason O'Donnell was on the phone somewhere here in terms of, oh, human in loop. Thanks, John. There is also an opportunity to not call this KCS in your organizations, right? You don't have to call this KCS. If you can get people to reused information, if you can get them to search, if you can get them to indicate that they've reused information, if you can get them to take responsibility for the knowledge that they're interacting with in the moment that they're interacting, and then if you have a way to harvest all of that, right? You don't actually have to call it KCS. We're about the outcome, not about the preciousness of this particular situation. But that's all I'm going to say about that. Oh, Mel says we call ours Henry Knows, with Henry being our version of sales. Oh, perfect. Yeah. If you can brand it so that it is meaningful to the people that you're working with, that is the best work. Oh, Neil, we would love any idea of adoption rate of KCS within any community. um, Part of the it is a joy to offer these things as right to use with attribution and with Creative Commons licensing. And part of the struggle there is that we have no idea what people are doing at any given time. We only know when people come and tell us, and we love to find out that people are using the methodology who we don't know. That's actually one of our most favorite, like, oh, people are reading it, right? That's visibility to impact. So Jason's got a pro tip. It's always been an enterprise model at the core, not just services support. It's true. It's been really fun to watch the evolution over time in terms of moving from a really service and support focused model, right? This is a little bit the evolution I think that we are all sort of going through, which is um, we have been so good at building silos in our organization, and we're noticing more and more that boy, it'd be more fun and more effective and more interesting to not be building those silos, because it turns out we really are all working toward the same thing usually, which is usually customer success and productivity with our tools and services. Oh, lovely. Costco IT has been using KCS for a few years at least, getting more and more buy-in as users see the value. My husband works at Costco. I'm so happy to hear that. He's in warehouse number 1 down on 4th Avenue South. I'm tickled to be able to tell him that. All right. So serviceinnovation.org. We do member events quite a lot. We also do events like this open to the public quite a lot. Uh, Love to see you there one way or another. You know where to find us. Let us know what you think. Come visit us on LinkedIn and have a great rest of your day.